Good afternoon and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. Now tonight we'll be having a good look at a few locomotives quickly. But first thing item we'll be looking at, and we'll see it coming around the tracks in just a moment. We'll zoom in a little bit to see it properly. Here it comes. You'll see two little men pumping for all they're worth. Bring it round and we'll see if we can get a good look at her now. Ah, there she is. It's a Gandy Dancer. It's a Bachmann Gandy Dancer. Something which was saved from one of my Saved from the Skip series. I don't know if I featured it in the video. I had a certain amount of railway locomotives and other railway equipment offered to me by my sister, and it was all being kept in a leaky shed, and it was all soaking wet. And I saved everything. I mean, literally everything was saved from that collection, including this little Gandy Dancer, which ran literally from the box. Focus on that. There we go, Gandy Dancer. Bachmann. Drive motor included. Workmen pump up and down. It was bought in the early 2000s, I believe. Hence the price of £19.80. The shop antics is still there, but you'll see these little men pumping up and down for all they're worth. Let's watch them go down the track a little. Off they go. And maybe they're going down to have a look at that set of points down there, just to make sure everything's safe for our locomotives to proceed. Okay, and I give you a nice little brief look at the Gandy Dancer. A genius little piece of gear, I think. Okay, so round it goes, and then you'll watch it come round to the junction now. Just a second. And round it goes. Well, considering it's a little 040 little device, it went over the, still managed to go over the points. Okay, you heard it clunk a little bit, but it works fine. Now, that's one little quick guest appearance. Now, the locomotives we're looking at today are all 440. Okay, and a little question I'll ask at the beginning is which one is the one introduced the most recently of these three locomotives. Okay, so what we're looking at right down in the far corner there is 440 GWR class, County of Devon. Then down in the station there we have Killarney. Okay, the city class, and then beyond it what they call a Duke Dog locomotive. Now, I don't know if you can see it over there, but looking at that one there, that one looks by far the most modern of the locomotives. Okay, and then these two look as if they were from the same time. As a matter of fact, the locomotive that was introduced the most recently, the latest, was in fact the Duke Dog. And the reason the Duke Dog was actually introduced at a later date was because of a particular requirement. In fact, the county class, the 440 counties and the Duke Dogs, were both built to run on the more lightly laid track where there's a particular weight limit. And so hence their design. I mean, what they did, these were in fact, to be fair, the Duke Dogs are made out of two earlier class of locomotives. The Duke class and the Bulldog class, and what they did is that they got a Bulldog chassis and they put a Duke boiler on it, so they basically amalgamated the two best parts really of each of those two locomotives, and then they went on then to serve on lines like the Cambrian Coast Railway, where there's Barmouth Viaduct for instance, and that's probably one of the longest wooden viaducts in the world, I should imagine, still in existence. And of course only a certain weight of locomotive can actually go over it. Alright, so what we're going to do though is we're going to start by looking at the Duke dog itself, I think. Okay, so we're going to change the points, and the Duke dog is also the one that I bought the most recently. If you want to see more details of the Duke dog, then have a look at my review which I just put out on it, which I focus on purely this one locomotive. But we're going to run her now quickly once I've changed the points, and we'll talk a little bit about the actual locomotive and the model. Right, so here we go. Now then, we'll watch her come out. Sorry if the tripod swiveled away slightly there. But here we go. We're gliding effortlessly out of the station now. And the point should not be an issue of any kind for this particular locomotive, so let's have a look. No, not at all. Shoot over the points, no problem at all. Alright, so now we're just going to put her in forward gear, and away we go. There we are. Sorry for any joltiness of the tripod and everything else, but of course I'm not a professional videographer, but I am trying to improve as I go along. Okay, so away we go, we're underway. Now this particular Bachmann model is in BR black. Okay, so this would have been as it would be after the war and after nationalisation. Designed by Charles Benjamin Collett, like we say, to suit a particular need, and that was for railways in Wales. In fact, when Charles Benjamin Collett became the chief mechanical engineer of the Great Western Railway in 1923, he found himself also in the middle of the grouping of the big four. And of course the Great Western Railway inherited a lot of smaller railways, especially in Wales, and they needed some locomotives to run on the lightly laid routes like the Cambrian Coast Railway, hence the requirement for these Duke dogs. Okay, so round she goes. Very nice model. We'll look at her in any great detail because of the model itself, because like I say, I did a more detailed review on this one already. Very nice runner. I've taken it apart and given it a good oiling on the motor and everything else, and which I always do, even though it's a new locomotive, always give it a quick service before I press it into service. And there's also in running. The Bachmann instructions actually says that you should run these in each direction for an hour each in each direction, so in forward and in reverse. Right, so what we're going to do then, we're going to be bringing our Duke dog in just a moment, give her another lap round. I say, just bought it. Would I recommend one of these? Yes, lovely locomotives, lovely runners. Nice lot of detail on there. Of course, it's all black, of course, it being the BR design. We've got the early crest on it. There we go, we'll just put her in there now. And then we'll just watch her go over the points. You can actually see what she's like on points again. Sorry if I'm casting a slight shadow of the railway too. But there we go. That's fine. So now we'll just bring her into the station, and then we'll talk about the next locomotive we've got. Okay, so this is the most recent, actually, the newest design by Charles Benjamin Collett, introduced in the mid-1930s. Obviously though, an amalgamation of two very much older designs. Share with the points there, no problem at all. See if we can get pretty good panning action going as well as we come in. Lovely, look at that, beautiful. Okay, so with this particular model, I'd say if you can get one, I mean I paid a fair bit of money for mine actually. It was about 130 odd I think I paid for it, but it was one I wanted. Okay, and it was brand new. From a model railway shop in Eastleigh in Hampshire, but I ordered it off eBay. Now, the other locomotive we're looking at here now is immediately in front. It's in Great Western livery. And this is City Class Killarney. Okay, and we'll talk about why it's called Killarney in just a moment as well. You think, well, why has it got an Irish name when it's surely the Great Western is more associated with the West Country? But we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so I'm just trying to get past the tripod now without knocking it over. I just did then. Sorry about that slight swivel there. Okay, so we'll get into some action again. Now again, this is another model by Bachmann. I fairly recently acquisition, and I've done a more detailed review of it. But here we go, Killarney. Now both of these locomotives, the Duke Dog and Killarney, are designed with outside frames. As you can see, they're a completely different design in the moment from when we bring in the last locomotive. Okay, look at the county. Totally from a different world of design. Inside cylinders, okay, outside frames, and you can see from the design of the coupling rods and everything else on there, everything's different. What they do share though is a lot of the West Country characteristics, which we can talk about as well as we're going round. And we'll talk about Killarney. Here we go. There we are, I'm back down in my seat now, so. And away, we're underway now with Killarney. Beautiful model this. Now, obviously the most famous class of the city class is City of Truro, which is reputed to have broken 100-mile-an-hour barrier. The first locomotive to actually do that. Now, I would say, as a Great Western man, yes, it did break the 100-mile barrier, City of Truro. Other people tend to disagree. They don't think that the actual speed was properly verified, but that's just a matter of argument, isn't it? Now, Killarney, it was named after an Irish county simply because the Great Western Railway were actually offering a service all the way from Paddington to the south of Ireland, to the south of the island of Ireland. Okay, and this was obviously before the Republic of Ireland or Southern Ireland had come to into existence. In fact, at the time that these locomotives were designed, the whole of the island of Ireland was under British rule. Okay, now obviously the political events and everything else surrounding all that is another matter for contention. It's not for me to discuss, but it does explain why we ended up with a locomotive from the Great Western Railway actually offering given the name of Killarney, and they were offering a railway service to Ireland. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they did, they went by train up to Rosyth, then by boats across to Ireland, and then they would travel down through Ireland to the south of Ireland, and then visiting the places which the Great Western actually referred to. Very, very nice runner, this model. Very, very pleased. Now both the Duke Dog class and Killarney, the Bachmann locomotives, have got fully detailed cabs. Really, really nice. Okay. Two locomotives I can happily put on my recommended list. And it's pulling carrosserie coaches, which is the right coaches for this particular train. The other coaches which you see on the layouts are Collet design coaches, and of course that would have been for after the 1923. After the year 1923. Which is when they were so obviously the grouping of the Big Four. The Big Four came about then. Which is obviously the Great Western, the Southern, the Midland, and last but not least the LNER. Then you've got your copper cap chimney here, your brass safety valve represented, and also the whistles. Now with the Duke Dog, you'll have probably noticed that the actual, the only thing that's in copper, in metal, is a copper chimney, and that's because everything else was painted the same livery as the rest of the locomotive. And I think if you look at the Bachmann GWR version of the Duke Dog, it's also got the safety valve cover actually painted in GWR green on that particular one. Okay, so you can imagine our Killarney perhaps maybe whizzing up, and they'll be catching a boat train, and then they'll be travelling across down to Killarney, a place served by the Great Western Railway in Ireland. Now, one thing which you will notice about Bachmann locomotives is the coal load. Okay, now the coal load, they're usually pretty shiny on Bachmann locomotives. Well, that's something which I like, simply because for me that's a representation of the coal load, as it would be if it had possibly been sprayed with water to stop it picking up or giving out lots of dust, coal dust. Now also, one thing you will notice about the Duke Dog, and we're focusing on the Duke Dog as well, Earl class. Well, they were named after Earls associated with the Great Western Railway, by the way. In fact, we're just going to scan back across to it. It's got no nameplates. And in fact, the names and the nameplates were removed to go on to the King class of locomotive, I think, on the castles in Kings. Okay, so that's what happened. They were actually removed, and so they ended up with no names. But the sole surviving example, which has been appeared quite a lot in this particular livery, is called the Earl of Berkeley, I believe. Okay, so but you can see that one there. We're going back to our Duke Dog. It's in BR black. The number would be different as well. They started off with a 32XX numbering, but then they were the number actually begins with a 9 now. The reason for the renumbering was when the Great Western Railway came out with the Collett class of locomotives, and they were given the 3200 numbers, and these were renumbered then to a number beginning with the number 9. Okay, so that explains that for you. Now we're just going to get back to our lovely Killarney. Now, one of the reasons I bought Killarney was that it came in at a far lower price than Sitio Choro. I mean, Sitio Choro is a very nice model, don't get me wrong, but it was at the time, Killarney was at a price that I wanted to pay for a particular locomotive like this. Whether or not I'll get Sitio Choro in the future, I do not know. But if I do get Sitio Choro, obviously you'll be the first to see it, okay? On my layouts, that is. Okay, so we're just going to bring Killarney up to the signal there, and again you'll see how nicely these locomotives handle the points. I mean, they've got pickups in the tenders as well as in the loco, just to give you extra conductivity and help you over any sort of dead spots on your point work. So let's change the points once more, and then we'll be coming on to our last and final locomotive. Now, in we come, and you'll see Killarney again over those points beautifully, look at that, and into the station. The level of control is really, really nice for me. I like that. Killarney coming to the station now. Now of course with any if I have a mishap, like I go too fast into here, or suddenly turn the controller the wrong way, the locomotive is going to go off the edge of the layouts. Okay, so that's why I do need that control. But you can see the difference there between the Great Western livery and the BR Black. Also, the City class locomotive, Killarney, is a much larger locomotive. When you look at them closely, they've got a much bigger boiler. And also you can tell that the big differences between them is the positioning of the safety valve cover. You can see on the it's near the back there, look, nearer to the cab, whereas on Killarney it's here, look. So that's another way of spotting the difference between the Duke Dock Earl class and the City class of locomotive. Okay, so without any further ado, we're moving on to our last and final locomotive we'll be showing for today. And again, we've got a bit of point changing to do before we can do that. And this is our county. Now, the county class is actually designed by George Jackson Churchward. Okay, so now we'll go over this in a minute about the chief mechanical engineers, because when they were in office, actually gives you an idea then of when these locomotives would have been designed. I'll just turn that so we won't get the Gandy Dancer come down again, which I love it. And we'll just shove the points into reverse. Now, whereas the other two locomotives were by Bachmann, this one is by Hornby. And it's from the Hornby Railroad range. And I'll explain to you a little bit about the Hornby Railroad range in just a moment. And again, these were built for a particular requirement. If you have a look down here, we've got our Duke Dog there, okay, and then County of Devon. They were both built for a particular requirement, and that's where 460 locomotives were not allowed because of the weight restrictions. Okay, and in fact what this is a redesign of a Saint class, this County of Devon. And the Saint class was a 460, and what they did was they used standard parts to make this 440. Now the main fundamental difference between the Hornby Railroad range is that usually they'll be using kind of older toolings, might not be quite so detailed as the main range of locomotives in Hornby, but they've got some advantages. Now the main advantage is their durability, because they've got less separately fitted parts, so there's less separately fitted parts to become unseparately fitted. Okay, so they're a little bit more durable. Might be more suitable for a younger railway modeller. Now what these did in service, these got a reputation for being rough riders, okay, and that was mainly down to the fact that you had literally all the parts of from a Saint squashed down into a 440 design as opposed to a 460, and all of the shock to the wheels and everything, and the motion was being absorbed by 4 wheels instead of 6. But saying that, they did give very, very good service. Some did well over 1 million miles, and they acquitted themselves very, very well. They certainly were not any slouches. They certainly went fast enough, and they pulled express trains and kept up good time. Okay, so one thing you won't get on one of these is a separately fitted dart, and you won't get a painted cab either. But what I have done to liven things up a little bit, I mean certainly where you've got the black cab, I would say something very, very worthwhile would be to add a loco crew. Okay, you can just see our local crew there, look, our driver and fireman. Okay, we're working away. Also, you notice as well that the church ward design of cab is a lot smaller than the collet cab usually. Okay, no side windows there, and really, okay, not much shelter for the elements, to be honest with you. But that's the design of the GWR cab as it was at the time. It's very, very nice in GWR green, and you've got our copper chimney and the brass safety valve cover, and obviously it being a 440, all these locomotives here today are 440s. Apart from our Gandy Dancer, obviously that's an 040. Okay, so what we're going to do, we can bring it around a little bit more now and watch it run. We're going to zoom out a little bit too, I think, just a tiny bit. There we are. Now, one difference as well on these particular models, which you need to bear in mind if you get one, is that the wheels on this particular Hornby locomotive has got traction tyres. I mean, for me personally, traction tyres isn't a problem. I don't mind. Okay, if they come off, you have to replace them. That's a bit of a bind. Some people obviously would say it's more realistic not having traction tyres, and there's arguments either way. Again, arguments either way. I'm happy to run them with or without. And you'll probably notice that this 440 is a much larger design as well. Now again, would I recommend one of these models? Yes, I would. Nice runners, very, very nice runners. Okay. One thing that you will find with it though is that on the tender there is an unusually high coal load. That's because the model used to be tender driven, and that was the actual space that was needed to accommodate the ring-filled motor, whereas now the motor actually lives inside the locomotive itself, which a lot of people again would say is a lot more realistic as well. But they didn't redesign the tender to accommodate to accommodate the fact that there was no longer a motor in there. But very, very nice. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we're coming up to the 30-minute limit on the particular video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it over and put it out to YouTube for you. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be informed of new videos that are coming out. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thanks for anyone who stuck to the end of any of my videos. I hope you find them interesting and informative, and I should bid you farewell and goodbye. Thank you very much.